Welcome to another edition of the Corner Booth here at Green Spot Restaurant, and I'd like to begin today, Leslie Bill, if it's okay, by plugging our Montreal fundraising shirt this year. I brought you each your own. So there's one for you.
At close, right? That's mine?
And there's one for Bill.
It's a smaller size.
Yeah, of course, yours is the smaller one.
Mine is the...
And I'm wearing a different one which simply says, Montreal, you can't get there from here.
Oh,
Now,
I love it.
if you want to go out, these are to support the Gazette Christmas Fund and also the Starlight Foundation this year. So you can get one by going on the website, which is themontrealshirt.com. Themontrealshirt.com. You can buy one there, and there are no supply chain issues. So you should have it in plenty of time for Christmas.
supply.
Do you think there'll still
Thank you,
be
Eric.
orange cones in over the next 4 years?
Yeah,
or-
over the next 40 years, yes, I
Yes,
do. Thank you
okay.
for asking. All right. Let's get into it by talking about a story that blew up this week, and you very much in focus, and I know you didn't plan to be.
Right.
This had to do with Martin Picard, who is the owner of Au Pied de Cochon,
Yeah.
posting an ad very innocently, looking for someone to work. We all know there's labor shortages in the restaurant business, paying $13.50 an hour.
Right.
And if that's all you read, and that's all it took, war broke out online. So go ahead and fill in the blanks and explain what happened and how you got involved.
Well, I actually just looked at the La Presse website because the original article was in La Presse. And my initial shock was that they were comparing a gastronomic restaurant salary to one at McDonald's. You know, working at McDonald's is closer to working at Home Depot. Sorry, I have a tendency to
You
hit
do.
my hand. Yeah, I'll stop that. Yes, so the problem is that you can't compare working at a gastronomic restaurant as you can to working in a fast food restaurant. First of all, the first few years, or the first year, or the first half year that you're working in a restaurant like Au Pied de Cochon, you're really learning the basics. And if you look at the ad that he put in, and he made it quite clear too, that he said that he wanted to be starting at $13.50. So you walk in, he's saying starting at $13.50. If it's a job maybe for putting a tortilla in a box, maybe that's a $13.50 job. If it's a cook job, you go in and you say, I don't want $13.50. I think my experience is worth $15. At a place like Au Pied de Cochon, you are learning a lot. At a place like McDonald's, no offense to McDonald's, because I know a lot of people who work there and did very well. But at a place like McDonald's, you're reheating food. You're not cooking.
I want to fast forward, though, to what happened when you decided
Right.
to get into this. You went on Twitter and basically
Right.
said, as you just explained now, first of all, it's not as simple as $13.50. There's tip sharing apparently involved. You probably end up
Right.
making
He
$17.50
said that
or
later,
$18
yes,
an hour.
yes.
What happened to you?
Well, a lot of people said, how could I support that anybody who works in a high-end restaurant is on poverty wages? So I think, first of all, there's a big political argument there that maybe the minimum wage should be raised if that's a poverty wage. People can't live on it. Secondly, I know that a lot of people who start in restaurants are young, and that if they plan on staying, their salary will quickly go up in restaurants. A lot of people start at minimum wage, and then once they see how good they are or
Okay,
not,
you're making a
they
very
increase it.
very common sense, logical point for
Right.
someone who knows the business, right,
Right.
and has been in it forever.
Right.
But you got attacked.
Oh, absolutely, I got attacked. First of all, the most interesting thing is that people really don't know how restaurants work. There are a lot of myths there. A lot of people think that chefs are millionaires and that they're rolling in dough. Not true. A lot of chefs are very close to closing their doors. I know one restaurant owner who everybody would assume was extremely rich, who told me he cashed in his RESPs a long time ago. Secondly, people think that if menu prices are high, then they're making more money. But food cost aside, one thing people have to understand is in a gastronomic restaurant, it takes a lot of little hands to put things on plates. So in a family restaurant, you'll maybe find 4 employees, and in a high-end restaurant, you could have 20 employees in the restaurant, in the kitchen, to make that food. So it's a completely different thing than it being, a place like Green Spot.
But
I want to ask you, though, because you saw what happened.
Yes.
You read some of the tweets. I mean,
Yeah.
beyond nasty, they were threatening, beyond
Yeah.
hateful.
Yes.
I looked
And
at some of these and
and
thought, oh, my
misogynist.
God. And
Yes,
misogynistic.
yes,
Yeah.
all of the above.
But the bone of contention for a lot of people is forgetting all of that is that they think that that's the reason people aren't working in restaurants anymore because the salaries are so low that they were happy with the serve. They're going to be happier on welfare, and people won't go back to work because that's all they're offering, and they've been used to getting more by doing nothing, sitting at home.
Yeah,
and restaurants are still having difficulty getting staff.
A restaurant owner told me something very interesting after all this happened. She said a lot of people aren't interested anymore in that idea of paying your dues in the restaurant business. It's starting out for a low salary. By the way, it's not just the restaurant restaurant business. You know, when I started in journalism, I started with a very low salary. You earn your way up as you learn.
Sure.
But now there's so many jobs available in the restaurant industry that a lot of people don't want to start at minimum wage. I understand. I absolutely understand, but you also have to prove your worth, and you have to make sure that you're good before you're going to get a big salary. But I think the bigger issue in the restaurant business isn't that people are starting at minimum wage. It's that 3 years in, they're then only making $18 an hour. What about the fact that a lot of women get paid less than men in restaurants? What about the fact that a lot of people said to me, I don't want to go to a restaurant that pays minimum wage, that pays their workers minimum wage, when a lot of them are, and how are we going to know what people are paying in restaurants? And also, let's talk about the idea of tip sharing, which will mean that people in the kitchen will make as much as people who are serving. That is not working. A lot of restaurants have tried it. A lot of waiters don't want to share their tips. It's a very hard thing. Danny Mayer in New York tried to do this. So it's actually a huge issue. But also, why are we always focusing on the restaurant issue? I mean, how much are people getting paid in stores? How much are people getting paid in starting
there's no
jobs
glamour
anywhere?
in stores.
Restaurants
We're
are
obsessed with restaurants.
Restaurants are a way of life here.
Focusing on the fact that someone who has an opinion that doesn't happen to agree with the herd, in this case, gets shamed on social media.
Crapped on. That is a whole other topic about the abuse on social media. How many people have walked away from social media because they say it's like, gladiator, and that if you can't hack it, you got to get out. But I think there's good debate and bad debate, and for me, it's a challenge to try to say to some
trolls
people.
will always be there, and that's the.
How did you react when you started seeing some of those messages, though? Did you go back and forth with
She's
them?
very
question,
brave.
Aaron. No, you block the people who insult you and call you horrible names.
Okay.
If you see that there's an opening to debate with people on social media, you do. This is Facebook, this is Twitter, this is even Instagram. And then, you try to get your point across. And some people just don't even want to debate. They're convinced beforehand. But this is this is actually a world that I know very well.
I salute you for engaging, because I don't do that. I just, there's never a battle to be won, because you have to convince someone that you're right and they're wrong. They don't want to be convinced. They have only one point to keep proving.
Right.
So I don't engage at all.
You said the misogyny, you said this. I've been attacked for being an Anglo, but you know what I really hit the most is the ageism. So when I said, well, when I was young, I wasn't paid a lot in restaurants, it's like, hey, grandma. Somebody said, when you were working 40 years ago, I'm like, I was 40 years ago. It's the ageism, actually, that gets me the most. Like, back in your day, we don't care.
Yeah, add that to the list.
Yeah, well, experience is meaningless.
That's almost as good as anti-vaxxers.
I was also called a boomer, eh? I was called a boomer.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
I'm not a boomer. 66 is a boomer. I resent that.
16 over is a boomer, but don't take that too seriously. All right.
I would be proud.
Let's move on. Talk about this next story. They have decided finally the stupidest part of the vaccine campaign, which was you can drive across the Canada-U.S. border now that it's been reopened, but if you're only going for, say, a day or two, you're going to Burlington, Plattsburgh, whatever, you will need a PCR test. Only you can't get a PCR test and get it back that quickly.
You have to get it before you leave here.
So do it in Canada, then go to the U.S., and then don't get one there. Just come back and show the one you got in Canada.
Absolutely moronic.
No one understood that. Everyone came out against it. It took the government until this week to change it. What do you think happens now?
Well, it's absolutely. It was insane to do that in the first place. Who is going to go to Burlington or Plattsburgh for the day and then come back with their families and have to take 4 PCR tests? And it was insane. Someone saw the wisdom in this, but the fact is it's only for 72 hours. If you're staying longer, you'll still have to come back and get testing. It makes no sense. Americans can come over onto this side and just show that they've been vaccinated, I believe. So it doesn't add up. It should be...
Okay, well, the part that didn't make sense is the fact that, first of all, to get a PCR test here, first of all, it's expensive.
It's very expensive.
Second of all, you have to wait. It's not a rapid test. You don't get it in 15 minutes. So if you're going to go to the States for the day, you can't get a PCR test result that quickly anyway.
But why would you even do that if it costs up to $100
Plus,
a person?
If you're fully vaccinated, why are you providing a PCR test at all?
Well,
and what's the
point
of doing?
You don't have it right now that you're not contagious.
What's the point of if you're doing
but
it to do it
to
here,
another country,
go there and come back?
Proves nothing. You went to another country for a day or two,
Correct.
and now you're showing a test from before you left.
Yeah.
So thankfully that's done. We don't know exactly when it takes effect, but it's done.
Right.
You said you think there's a reason to go across?
I'm sad that it's 72 hours. I wish it was 4 days instead of 3. But
Isn't that the tax limit? What's the deal? Like if you buy stuff,
that's true. Eh?
$200 over 24 hours.
Right.
Yeah, okay,
And then
so you can
5
buy
days
more.
Or basically the cost of a PCR test.
But the Americans are hurting because in places like Burlington
Yeah.
and Plattsburgh, they really do rely on people coming
Absolutely.
in from Quebec and Ontario. I'm happy to go back to do a tiny bit of shopping, but with the exchange, forget it. But there are some good restaurants in Vermont that I'd be happy to go back to. And, and what a time of year. I mean, you go for 3 days, there's a huge blizzard, you get stuck in Burlington and you have to do a test.
That's right. And you're stuck
It's
at
a
the
bit
border.
risky,
Like,
yeah.
There's something to look forward to. All
Right.
right, let's move on and talk about something else this week.
Yes.
Francois Legault, during the CAC's confab over the weekend, said, okay, Quebec pride, and we're going to do this, and it's all about the regions, and kind of gave Montreal a bit of a slap in the face by saying, we're a party of the regions. Basically,
Well,
we don't
they
care
are.
about Montreal.
They
And then he said he didn't
They are.
recognize Montreal.
Then he said, I don't recognize Montreal, not in relation to that, but in relation to another teen being killed in the city. And this brings up the whole idea, and we talked about this during the mayoral campaign, is Montreal a safe city? And clearly Montreal is, and I wonder if this is being played for political advantage now, because another, at this time a 16-year-old, got shot in the city and died. What do you think?
First of all, it's a very callous reaction on his part to say he doesn't recognize Montreal. The fact of the matter is, he doesn't need Montreal. What does he have? 2 members, like
2 out of 25 or 26,
like who are here. So he basically doesn't need the city. So he can say what he likes, and he probably doesn't recognize it because he doesn't hang around it too much. That said, I think that's really oversimplifying the situation to say that this is a totally unsafe city. I mean, it is in the sense that it's horrible to see these unabated teen shootings and killings. On the other hand, I mean, it could be a lot worse. I mean, look at Toronto, look at the States. This is not the worst city
Okay,
as far as that is
which
concerned.
kind of begs the question. I'm curious what you think. We talk about gun control. This is what both the provincial
And they're
government
blaming the feds.
and the municipal government came out and said, well, it's Ottawa, they need to do more.
Right.
Is the problem really gun control, or is the problem this generation of teenagers seems to be more violent, more prone to violence than previous generations? Is it a bigger problem than just guns?
Definitely a social problem, and I think we go back to social media, and you go back to what kids have been like locked away for the last 2 years, watching like video games and doing all sorts of things. I think that it touches on major social issues for sure, because this is young people as opposed to the usual like suspects in terms of not elderly, but older people, and I think there is a problem there, but it's a universal problem. It's not here. It's everywhere.
So it's everywhere, yet we're focusing on this, and that brings me back to the question, do you think this is political? So we can say,
Yes.
let's blame Ottawa for not having more serious gun control. And by the way, to be fair, Heidi Rathjen, one of the parents from the
Right.
Dawson shooting who lost a child, says basically the same thing, that feds need to do more. Is the solution to make the penalty for owning or having a gun bigger, more serious than it is now? Because that seems to be one of the things they're talking about. Do you think that makes a difference? You get caught with a gun that's not yours or not obtained legally, you're going to jail not for a year, you're going for 10 years.
Leslie?
Well, you're putting me on the spot here. I'm really sitting here thinking, I'm back also to what you said about Legault saying that he doesn't recognize the city over this. I mean, is this really something that changes our city? I mean, if it was really kind of a crime and violence, it's not that you can take one shooting and not take it seriously, but I feel this is left over from the municipal election too, because it was a big topic, and it doesn't all change overnight. Valerie Plante has been talking about this too. It's hard to make these decisions or sit here and have an opinion on these things, because of course we want people with guns to get more punishment, but laws are laws, and also you don't want somebody to
But
go
should the
away
laws
for the
be-
wrong reason.
Should the laws be tougher?
Of course we all want the laws to be tougher, but if you're the kid who ends up with the gun, should we put him away for 10 years because he got caught in a bad situation?
What's he doing? What's he doing with a gun?
Well, nothing good.
You've got kids in that demographic.
Yeah, well, if it was my child who got
but
stuck
like
in a bad situation and ends up with a gun and gets put away for 10 years instead of 2 years, of course it's horrible. It's like that idea of having more police in Montreal. Well, remember when Balarama Holness said to us, maybe there should be more counseling, maybe there should be more people on the streets to help these kids who are the gangs or kids who are in bad situations? Maybe that's more of the solution than just slapping people in jail. Try to help them before it gets to this.
I just wonder, like you said, is it callous of us to say, when someone says, a politician says it's a dangerous city, we know it's not, because when you look around, if you look to Toronto, if you look to even cities in America smaller than
Chicago,
Montreal,
for God's
really,
sake.
Well, we used to
are
be the
not a
bank
dangerous
robbery
city.
capital of North America.
But we are
Yeah.
not a dangerous city in that sense.
In that sense.
So I don't
And it's
understand.
mostly young gang related. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
not the last kid apparently, but it's people are enamored of that kind of gun culture. Young people, and I think that's where it's coming from
Yeah.
from a lot of video stuff. And
But
they've
they
been
say that
cooped
video
up.
games, see, that's where my kids would argue with you, saying that video games actually do not promote more violence with kids.
I don't know.
But when you see the video games,
when you see
know,
those I don't know about that.
yeah, wow.
You got smart kids.
Well, I know, but they're very woke.
But you have to blame that on.
Can't
when
say
I s-
woke anymore.
You have to blame that on something. I think Bill's right. It's a giant social problem right now. So is it social media? If you're not going to blame it on video games, what's making these kids more violent today than
And
they
they're
were a
brazen
generation
about
ago?
it too. I mean, look at what goes on in Toronto. I mean, they do it in like broad daylight, nightlight, whatever. Start shooting up streets, parties, and whatever. This is not the way like organized crime would operate when
Right.
there's shootings and killings on that level. They're very careful to avoid getting innocent people involved. But they're like anybody gets in the way here is done, and it's a terrible situation.
Yeah.
But that's uncontrolled, and these are people with no kind of discipline in dealing with any of these things.
It's kind of like I wonder if we go 2 months without someone getting shot, do we no longer say this is a dangerous city?
I think it's really unfair to categorize the city in that
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, also sitting here in Montreal, we're so exposed to what's going on down south. So we're saying, we're always comparing ourselves to what? To the States. You know, we're always saying what's going on there, where it's a nightmare, and it could even get worse. So we're saying, oh, we're a safe city. But, you know, ultimately, nobody should get shot in the city.
No.
Nobody should feel endangered in their city.
In a perfect
you know?
world,
We're just
no.
getting used to it.
But we're not in a perfect world.
No, right. Right.
Let's move on to talk about something else which has been in the news lately. We're slowly but surely coming out of the pandemic, so everybody was spending all this time at home and buying every single streaming service you could because your kids were stuck at home and you had nothing else to do, are now suddenly waking up saying, wait a sec, $15 a month for Netflix, $10 a month for this one, $25
Amazon,
for Disney Plus,
Hulu,
Amazon Prime.
Apple.
Now we're finding out that people are saying, okay, enough. Partly
Used to-
because people are going back to work, number
Right.
one, and partly because we realize, you know what, those things add up.
Remember
so suddenly
when-
this
yeah.
idea of cutting the cable is now gone. That's old news, and they're
Exactly.
cutting streaming.
So now we have a real dilemma because Peter Jackson's coming out with this 3-part documentary series November 25th that will only be streaming on Disney Plus. So now do we have to go to Disney
Right.
Plus to start streaming? I mean, after the Apple, after the Amazon, after the Netflix, where does it all end?
I just got rid of Disney Plus because
Oh, now
I
you're gonna
got
have to
it.
get it back.
I got it to see Hamilton because my kids wanted it. Then I canceled it. So you tell me I'm gonna have to get it back?
I think
You
so.
know, and then I just got Apple TV to see Ted Lasso. Big disappointment, by the way. I'm
no,
not a-
like Ted Lasso.
what is wrong
I'm
with
not
you?
a fan of
What?
Ted
Oh
Lasso.
my
Oh,
God.
God.
Leslie, you. Oh,
Oh,
Leslie,
I
what-
can't
don't know what
it's
to
so.
say.
that.
I don't know.
It's
I mean,
happy,
Wait.
easy,
oh, it's so
smiley.
happy.
and
yeah.
you can catch Jon
And,
Stewart.
and you know what? I hate Succession because it's so evil.
What? Well,
Yes,
Okay.
Ted Lasso.
Just
I
like
good
think
the
we
night.
need to,
Rogers
we need to stop the
situation.
podcast
Oh my
now. You
God.
can't,
Oh,
you
I
can't
know.
say
Ted
anything
Lasso.
bad.
Well,
Oh, no, hold
You're
on.
gonna
You
get
can't
more
say
hate
anything
mail
bad
on
about
this.
Succession. It's like the best show on TV.
Succession is
oh, they're
brilliant.
all awful people.
I mean,
My
it-
God.
yeah, but it mirrors.
But there are awful people in the world.
Well, I
art.
know, but
Yeah.
I mean, and the last show, what a mess that was.
No,
Oh, what
no,
was that
Leslie,
script going
no.
all over the place?
Okay.
Anyway,
Bill,
you should
Bill,
try
calm
another
down.
one.
Ted
Okay.
Lasso's
The
for
Shrink
kids.
Next Door with Will Ferrell and
Ted
Paul
Lasso's
Rudd
like the
on
Carol
Apple.
Burnett show,
Are
but
you
not
listening
as
to
funny.
me?
What you say?
If you're still on Apple, there's a show called The Shrink Next Door with Will Ferrell, like you've almost never seen
that
him,
would
and
be
Paul Rudd
On what streaming? Apple?
on Apple. So don't
Okay,
give it
and
up.
if you're on Apple, have you watched The Morning Show with Jennifer
Yes.
Aniston?
Oh,
I got through 2 episodes.
And call that a day as
I
well?
called it a day.
And,
Wow.
and what about Jon Stewart?
Can't
He's,
stand
We're never
Jennifer
going to a movie
Aniston.
together.
oh my God, Leslie.
Okay.
No, but you know what? I just finished Better Call Saul, and that is an oldie but a goodie.
Yes.
Not
But you
even
know
that
what?
old.
But wait,
Not that old,
it's
yeah.
some of it's not on Netflix anymore, right? You start it on
It
Netflix.
moves- yeah, it moves
you
around.
finish
Yeah.
it on HBO.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right though.
Okay.
This is a big problem. How much am I spending every month on these things? And now I've got to get Disney Plus back.
Yes, you must.
By the way, to explain what you're talking about, the Peter Jackson docuseries is
Making
about
of Let It Be.
right the Beatles, right?
And apparently the real story that you didn't break up the Beatles, neither did Leslie. In fact, no one, it wasn't Yoko and it wasn't Paul. They just split up
They didn't like each other?
Organically, they just
amicably. There was no acrimony there.
Okay.
I saw some clips, and it looked.
You
very,
should explain to some of our younger viewers, perhaps,
Who the Beatles
are.
were.
Yeah,
That's the band before
four
Paul
guys
McCartney
with
was
longish
with Wings.
hair from Liverpool, and they sang some very nice songs and very sweet melodies, and most of the family liked them. But it's very interesting how all of a sudden people are slamming one of my favorite groups, the Rolling Stones. Paul McCartney and Roger Daltrey, The Who, basically calling them just a very pedestrian bar band.
Right.
And
Pub band,
who's still touring at 90? Mick. And
Did you see the clip of Mick dancing yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know how he does it because I can't even get up the stairs. Sometimes.
How does Keith Richards do it? In the event of nuclear
They
apocalypse,
are all
Keith
preserved.
Richards
Will
and
not die.
cockroaches
And cockroaches.
will be the only ones to survive. And this is unbelievable. They're over 80, for God's sakes.
Well, isn't Mick Jagger 79?
Close to 80.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel that would still qualify.
One of
I
them
would think,
died.
so.
I mean,
Yes.
right.
And he was the least wild of the bunch.
All right,
Charlie
so
was.
let's see. Since we're in the realm of rock or pop music here, let's talk about Taylor Swift. My advice
Do we
is
have to?
never ever date
Or
Taylor
give her a
Swift.
scarf. Don't give her a
Go-
scarf.
Anything she gives you, give her back immediately, or you're going to hear about it and you'll be talking
Go
about it in
Taylor
a
Swift.
song.
I love
You're
the
a Taylor
revenge.
Swift fan?
If I was
Okay.
Taylor Swift, I too would have made songs about all the guys. who
10
screwed
minutes
me
on
over.
Saturday Night Live, she sang a song that never ended. Poor Jake Gyllenhaal.
It was a
He doesn't-
story. It was a
a
story.
He had
Jake
it coming.
Gyllenhaal doesn't
Yeah.
know. She doesn't.
It's revenge pop.
Because he didn't give her back a scarf?
Well, I don't know, but
Is
it's
that
fun.
a
We're talking about it.
Is that a category now? Revenge
pop?
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, yes.
My
And by the
God,
way,
Leslie.
it gets people
First
talking
Ted
about
Lasso and now Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
it.
Once,
I
once
prefer
this
that.
is over, we're going to have an intervention for Leslie, Bill, and I to understand why you don't like Ted.
Everybody
Lasso.
loves
Yeah,
Ted Lasso.
it's, don't believe the hype. It was overhyped.
It's not the hype. I saw it,
It was
all.
overhyped.
Bill,
So
you're
it-
yelling.
I know,
well, he's
but I
upset
can't believe.
because he doesn't,
But men and women and children, everybody.
Animals,
loves
everybody loves that
My
show,
cat
yeah.
loved it. My dog loved it.
meh.
And Succession?
Yeah.
No. You don't like Succession either.
I like Succession, but I start throwing things at my television.
Well,
they're
a
also
flawed,
evil.
They're a flawed family.
Flawed. I mean, they're just it's
Mirroring the lives of the Rogers family.
No,
The Murdoch family.
the Murdoch family,
But also
and
Roger
the
and
Rogers.
the Rogers.
Canada's
Yes.
version,
Well,
yeah.
yes.
Well, then let me ask this: if those are shows you don't like, what are you watching that you do like?
I started watching Maid. Okay.
Maid was good.
Maid was
It
good?
is so depressing. I didn't get past one episode.
Margaret, oh
Wow.
my
My
God!
God, you guys.
Margaret Qualley, the star, she works with her mother. She's in every scene.
Well, and Annie McDowell is overacting like crazy.
I
Andy
thought she
McDowell
was
is
great. She's great. Leslie,
Wait a sec. Let me
Well,
try.
get her some alcohol.
Let me
Oh,
try
no,
the.
it's
Hold
too
on. Let me try
depressing.
the Queen's.
And I was
the
drinking
Queen's-
wine when I was watching
Queen's
it.
The
Gambit.
Queen's Gambit.
I like the Queen's Gambit.
Oh, we found one. Okay. Well,
but
I guess
a lot
we
of
can
people
rest.
don't.
No, I
No,
don't
there
know
are
anyone
other
who
things
doesn't.
too. There are other things. I've seen other things. But really, for anybody who hasn't seen Better Call Saul, I like
Well,
it.
but watch, that was 10
Well, if you
years
saw
ago.
Breaking
I
Bad,
know, but
Breaking
you know what?
Bad. Right.
It's ageism. You see, I'm behind the curve. I'm
not
out of
ageism.
touch. I'm just saying, if you haven't seen it,
Okay.
It's lassoism.
last thing we're going to talk about is Elon Musk. So you know who he is, Tesla, who went nuts kind of last week when he posted on Twitter to his followers whether he should sell $10 billion worth of stock to pay down a tax bill. And listen, because he has sold down in the last 7 days $8.8 billion of stock because
Right.
his followers said he should. So what do you
Pocket
think?
change to the man.
Okay.
He's extremely eccentric. If you follow him on social media every day,
He does
is
not
a-
pull his punches.
Oh no! And also, what he said about Bernie Sanders
Yes.
is awful.
Are you still alive?
Yeah, that's awful.
He doesn't really get it because who buys Teslas? They're not Republicans.
Everybody.
No,
Everybody.
they buy,
No, they buy those too.
they buy fossil fuel burning automobiles. They don't buy electric cars.
And they buy
Well, rich
Teslas to
people.
show their friends that they're,
yeah, rich
they're,
people
they're
buy
hip, they're
Teslas.
woke.
Yeah, they're woke.
Like I don't think that Bernie's buying a Tesla anytime soon, but he's probably a big supporter
well,
of
he
electric.
isn't now. He isn't now.
No,
Right.
but the point being, like, why would you go after Bernie for God's sakes? When, like, a lot of Democrats who buy a lot of his vehicles would not take kindly to that, and did not.
He also, by the way, is kind of going after Joe Biden. Joe Biden went for a drive at GM
Oh, I
in
saw
an
him whipping
all-electric
down
Hummer.
there. That scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
You see how he was like
It
went
took off like a bat
0
out of
to
hell.
80? Yeah,
Yeah.
like I mean, this guy, I don't know.
Look, it's interesting that
He
we
said
can
he's a
talk
car
about
guy.
Elon Musk
He said he's a
today.
car guy.
Tesla basically dominates the electric vehicle market, but every day a new car from a new company is coming up.
there's
That's not
another
going to
one,
last forever. Rivian,
yeah.
which is backed by
Which is
Jeff.
now the second biggest electric truck builder.
They haven't really made a profit yet, but apparently that's not important.
Well, remember when
so,
Tesla
yeah.
never made a profit
Yeah.
either? Now he's the richest man in the world. I don't get it, Aaron.
Right.
Why haven't you come up with something other than a T-shirt to?
I'm working on an electric T-shirt. That will be my next one. Hopefully, I'll be able to pull that off.
Right.
So,
Well,
okay.
also, it goes to show if you're the richest man in the world, you can maybe do and say whatever you want.
yeah.
Yeah,
Is that okay or not? I wonder. Guys, we're done.
we're back on the 30th of November.
Okay.
Because someone's going on an unwell-deserved vacation.
Right.
Who isn't me or Leslie?
Good for you, Les. Oh, me. That's me. Right.
Yeah, it's
I'm
you.
not going anywhere.
We'll see you on the 30th. Thank you very much for being with us. And
Thank
if you
you.
do want to get your shirt to support Starlight and the Gazette Christmas Fund, themontrealshirt.com.
And thank you once again to the good folks at Green Spot for accommodating
Absolutely.
all our
Yeah.
screaming and yelling.
And to our producers, John and Dave, thank you, guys.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you on the 30th.
Let's get a hot dog.